Okay, today is July 10th, 2025. I'm Jason Shapiro with Crowded Market Report. And today we are doing another one of our interview series where we like to interview some of the people that are part of the Crowded Market family and involved in our Discord and all that. And we like to spread it across different people that trade different things and have different styles. Today we have our friend James, who lives in Budapest. Welcome, James.
Hi there.
James is an interesting character because I think he trades mostly crypto. But what we really like about him is he is very involved in mindfulness and psychology. And since that is such a big part of being a trader, we know that a lot of trading is up here. We thought we'd invite him on and talk a little bit about his take on that and how he uses it in trading and, whatever else he can come up with or whatever else he can teach us with. So, James, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. So I guess I start where I come from and how this trading journey began and all that. So I started out as an engineer, software engineer. I did my studies on the technological university, and then I didn't really know what to do with myself. I come from a family where my father is a successful businessman, and I always looked up to him because of this, and so I kind of tried to follow his example. After becoming an engineer, I just really didn't like to sit all day with the tiniest details of a software, and I also found myself a little bit kind of a mediocre software engineer, and I figured that with this AI revolution that wasn't there when I was younger a little bit, but I figured that this is something that will be replaced someday when big things and technology replaces everyone who is mediocre, right? It's about that. So I figured I would try small business and then go from there, and that's where my not trading blowout came first, and so I blew out in a few small businesses because I really thought, whatever, if my father can do it, why couldn't I do it? It's like a thing. It's so hard, to grasp how experience works in someone. Maybe I didn't see my father's biggest struggles. I only saw, he came from a poor family, very poor family, and he made fortunes, and I just thought, so it's just like a matter of, I don't know, doing similar things and being smart and being very smart. But it turns out it's not about being very smart, And so fast forward, I after these small businesses, I with my remaining money, I figured I need to invest some money and not blow out everything I have. So I tried investing for long term, and it worked kind of well, because now I think the reason was I was very lucky too. But you don't know when you're doing your first few trades or investments, and it's but it was my experience that okay, I just buy Bitcoin, it goes up, and that's it. So it doesn't work like that in the end. I found out.
Well, it does, though, right?
Yeah. So then I got married, and I got two little kids, and so I found myself, thinking a little bit more, in terms of risk reward, as you like to say, and So I always knew somehow that I'm okay. I was lucky. And so how do we make this somewhat systematic, not just all into something and then wait to go up and then average down, like everybody says that it's not the way to go. Like I found out after the fact, and So one thing came after another, and I was watching financial media. Everybody does that. I like to be knowledgeable and smart, among my friend circle, and I just. Something in my mind told me, maybe I picked this up from my father, that it's hard to make money. It shouldn't be so easy. And all the financial media, it sounded like entertainment, more like an entertainment than something to, because I don't see what those people are really doing in the background. How do they place those trades? They're talking about this so much bear porn. They are so bearish, and so after a while, I just came to see an interview with you, and at that time I was really thinking about dropping all of it, because all of the trading and everything, because I thought this is impossible. These people aren't placing trades. Trades that are winning. I can't believe these people make money. It's because at that time I burned myself a few times. Then you came on and you talked about news failure, positioning, COT, and stuff like that. And okay, this guy is talking something, and it's not about out macroing everyone, and and drawing more lines than anyone can. And that just sounded like wisdom, and that's how so in the meantime I became a mindfulness teacher too, and that's what you started with. That I come from a place of mindfulness, and focusing on the process is a big part, I think, in mindfulness too, and how the thinking process, not being entangled with thought, but really seeing how we think, and tuning the attitude, how we meet those thoughts and emotions and emotional control. And so that I really saw some wisdom you were talking about, and saw the experience radiating through the screens. So that's why I joined CMR.
Great. I think that you make some interesting points about the business, which are very similar to trading. It's not about being smart. I think trading is the same way. It's not the smartest person that is most successful trading. I always say, like, you might be the single smartest person in the market, but that's really not going to be anywhere close to enough, because you have to be smarter than everybody in the market combined, because that's what price is. It's everybody's opinion combined. So you have to be smarter than all those people combined in order to make your smart be the way to pay off. And that's not really going to be possible.
Yeah, and that's what I also found very interesting, that so there was, at that time, there was so much bearishness. And I think, I don't remember which year, like maybe last year somewhere, but there was still a bull market, and you were always talking about, and this, so I subscribed to the daily videos some longer time ago, then I'm part of the community, but you always talk about what's the risk reward here, who bought, who sold, how they feel right now, how could they feel right now, and what might be the risk reward here. And when the consensus is so bearish, how is the risk reward showing itself through art, and what process can exploit that risk reward somehow? That was very, very interesting and very, very eye-opening for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the important thing is in all of trading, is trying to establish what the risk reward is for a trade. A lot of people try and predict the future, which is, I think, an exercise in futility over time. Really trying to establish a risk reward situation where the reward is much higher than the risk is, over time, what this is about. And then, of course, having the discipline and all that to try and take advantage of that over time, which is the hard part. So why don't we get into that? Why don't you tell us a little bit about mindfulness and how we can be more mindful,
of course. So
more trading, and how we can gain an edge in our psychology and all that, and stop all these habits that we have.
So psychology is like one ingredient. I'm always thinking about this. The way that statistical thinking is another ingredient too, for me at least. I always try to. I always encourage myself not to be too much taken away by the individual traits, but have an edge over the long term. And So the psychological part is very important, because even if you have an edge, which is, I think it's hard to come to a system that has an edge, because nowadays I think most of the edge people people assume they have come from some discretion. I would say it's very, very hard to systematically produce an edge, I think. But always I always put myself in the position of so I go through my trades, but I also go through the price, and I'm watching my emotions, and when I can be open to whatever the price is doing when I'm in a trade or outside of a trade, I can clearly see the difference, and before I was trading, I couldn't imagine that there's a really big difference how we see the price when we're in a trade, when we're not in a trade, and if when I can be aware of what I'm feeling, when I'm feeling a lot of resistance, that's not a good risk reward in psychology. But it can be met with system and with discipline. But the best states of mind, I think, need to be cultivated. And one way, I think, is mindfulness to do this, which is actually a kind awareness, a non-judgmental awareness of one's state of mind or experience. Our body can, I think, teach us a lot about how we're panicking, how we're going through all these different emotions, and that is very telling, I think, and maybe logging it too. So like journaling it also makes sense. Not only the trades, but also the emotions we're going through.
So how can we get a hold of these emotions? Well, what are your suggestions for? Is it a question of meditation? Is it a question of observe? I do this a lot, but observe, try, and it's very difficult, because we obviously have all our psychological biases, but it's very difficult. But trying to be aware of those biases at any time, I spend a lot of time doing that. Maybe too much time. I get way inside my head sometimes. But I do try and be aware of, if I'm going to make a trade, what is it that I'm looking at? Am I doing this for a biased reason, or am I doing this for the so-called correct reason that fits within my process? I spend a lot of time with that. Like I say, sometimes I can overthink it. But what do you suggest as ways to sort of?
Yeah. First, I would suggest not to strive too much, not to push it too hard, because that creates the resistance that we will wrestle with itself, and I would say we cannot do better than accepting what's already here. So and I don't think we can in the moment change, or we should try to change in the moment what's already there, but we can influence it, how it unfolds in the future, I think, by being more kind to ourselves. It's a very big thing. It's a very big deal to work with the inner critic. That's a big thing for me. I've worked. There are courses for that. There are different methodologies for that. I went to an advanced mindfulness course that deals with the inner critic, and it's not about not questioning and not being skeptical about our thoughts and everything, and it's part of our improvement that we criticize ourselves, but the tone of it, how we do it makes a really big difference. I think it can open us up to even more improvement and so much more, instead of just because I think we as human beings are afraid of being scolded all the time, and that's what we do actually a lot of times in ourselves, without even noticing sometimes, or when we are noticing, we cannot stop doing it, and slowly, patiently, we can change these voices, or at least accept these voices, even the harsh critic. We can accept that it's there, but not needing to meet it with too much force, but maybe invite it and work with it with kindness, and then trying to letting go, but in its own time, because all the time it's like forcing myself, also on the market, but also on my emotions. It just doesn't work. It has to show itself, I think.
I think the concept of forgiving yourself is incredibly important with this, with everything, but we're going to focus on trading, obviously, because that's our forum. I know with me, I have to forgive myself a lot because to this day, I make mistakes. I have a process that I trade. Sometimes I'll miss a trade that would have worked. And I watch it every day. I wanted to short this thing and I didn't for whatever reason. I missed it. Now the market's going down. I watch it every day. It's going down. It's going down. It's going down. And I'm like, I just get so mad at myself for having missed it. But that can then affect the emotions of your next trade, which is bad. It can just turn a bad thing into a worse thing, right? So being able to forgive yourself, okay, I missed the trade. I'm human. These are the things that I tell myself. This is part of trading. It's not a perfect thing. I'm not going to be perfect at doing it. Losing trade is not the biggest thing. If it's within my process and it loses, I expect that there will be losing trades. I can deal with those. What I have problems dealing with are losing trades that maybe where I went outside of my process, which I really never do because of that. But sometimes where I miss a trade that arguably my process would have had on. I get pretty rough on myself. But again, I find it's about just forgiving yourself because those emotions can stick in your brain and then therefore affect you going forward. What you want to try and do is just, I find, forgive yourself for making a mistake and just let it pass and get back to focusing on the task at hand.
Yes, and you survived, and you could argue you thrived through so many years. So you made a very successful career out of this, and I can imagine you worked with these emotions a lot too, and with the discipline it needs. Sometimes I even think when it's too hard, the emotional load, I can step back a little bit and just reset somehow. Sometimes bodily resetting, letting the nervous system reset after missing things or just FOMOing into something. I also did that. Something that really helped me is I'm a little bit lucky, but sometimes I feel like unlucky. But I did my custom backtests and I did everything my custom ideas and so I struggled with that so much. I felt like I was crying. I had to eliminate so many biases in those backtests. It's so easy to just to make mistakes in those things and realizing those mistakes and oh my God, I'm an idiot. I will trade this and I'll blow this thing up. And what I'm doing in those backtests, if it's working well, is that I can go through if I did it, so simulating it and like go through trade by trade, bar by bar. I like to replay bars and just see how my emotions unfold and so it's also very hard to produce anything meaningful in a back test. That's one thing, but the other thing is to realize that you can't avoid those loss streaks. Loss streaks are extremely annoying and but expecting it is part of the deal, part of the strategy, I guess. We come into this with expectations that are so unrealistic, I think, sometimes. But when you're talking to someone who has been traded like you, that's a little bit different expectation, I would assume. Like if someone has a talk with you about trading.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. Trading is extremely difficult, and I even now I'm 57, going to be 58. I've been doing this since I was 21. And you say, okay, I've had a certain level of success doing this, but I look back and I'm like, was it even worth it? The psychological damage that has been done to me. You know what I mean? You can't put a price tag on that.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult thing and it's a very difficult life, mostly because of the psychological ups and downs. And I have done well in this business, although I had periods where I didn't do well. It took me a long time to get to a place where it became steady, a very long time. I'm glad that I finally got there, but it's a hell of a roller coaster, and it's not for most people.
Do you think you would have lasted if there was some other way to make money, or you just had to do it?
Well, there's plenty other ways to make money. I always say go to law school.
For you personally,
I mean,
You
I went to business school. I could have gotten a normal job, or something like that. I could have gone to law school, been a lawyer. I could have done whatever. What I found throughout my life was that I was not a very successful employee. Being a sort of contrarian, some would say, being an asshole, others would say, but however you want to define it, I was not a very good employee. So I didn't think going to have very much success, working in a large organization and climbing the corporate ladder because it wasn't my personality and it wasn't really my strength. So I didn't think that that was really the way. And I sort of fell into the trading thing, and it seemed to be, as it turned out, not as much as I originally thought, but for the most part, it can be a pretty independent thing. If I can trade and I can make money out of trading, then nobody can take that away from me. They can call me whatever names I want. They can say my attitude's bad. They can say whatever. They don't want to hire me or whatever, but they can't take that away from me.
yeah.
So that was what drew me to it. And then it took me a long time to really try and figure out how to make it profitable over time. And then B, once I maybe figured that out, how to stay disciplined to that process, and I struggle with that to this day. I wake up every morning with this and go to sleep every night with this, and all the psychological effects of it all.
Yeah. Yeah, but
But
part is
I try to, I don't know how successful I am. I try to be thankful for where I am. Okay. I try to not be too hard on myself, although many tell me that I am very hard on myself, and I probably am. I do expect a lot out of myself. And then when I make mistakes, I like I say, I try to let them go, because I have to. That's the thing about this, is that this is the only way that I make a living. So I can't afford to let one mistake affect me to turn into another mistake, to turn into another mistake. I can try and not make mistakes. I do make them, and I have to figure out a way to just accept it as a mistake, minimize the effect of it, and then move on, because I don't have a backup. So I just have to move on and take it from there.
yes, yes. At least it's any mistake we make, it's our mistake. As I like to think, it was my mistake. I can own up to it, and that way I can work with it. It's like the reason I actually really like the reason I can like sometimes trading is because it's a self-awareness journey, I think, and I can like in a relationship, it's very hard to leave the ego behind or leave out the door, and so what's really benefiting me is always in the mirror in trading and relationships too. I think that's how it checks on me if I'm going on a path I want to go. Like trading really reflects where I stand in being controlled, disciplined, and I was really before I started mindfulness. I was I'm still an impulsive person, I can tell, and maybe that's why I don't like to day trade. It's much more emotions, I think, and it's much harder to, I'm not like a stoic in that regard. It's hard. I think it's easier to start. It's easier to start with at least start with not day trading, but something that can build discipline a little bit better and easier. It's easier, I think, to just swing trade or even position trade or something like that. Yeah. So but big part of this is like I see other people on the CMR between CMR members. They have their struggles too. Some people post their returns for the month, for the week, and for the year. Some people post strategies, like I posted a Bitcoin trend following strategy, and we all kind of see everything, the good and the bad, the ugly. That's a big part of.
Hopefully, I mean,
Yeah.
it's really what the CMR is supposed to be about. You know what I mean? Us all having a place to go and talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. Me included. I try to highlight my mistakes as much as possible as a way to pass along lessons. People want it to be like, oh, here, I'm just going to tell you exactly how to trade, and I'm going to tell you exactly what trades to put on and all that stuff. But that really is not what it's
yeah,
about. I talk
yeah,
about my trades because I want people to see, hey, both the winners and the losers and the struggles that I go through with this. Because this is
yeah,
like I say, it's a very, very tough business, and it's a very lonely business. The positive sign, like you say, the mistakes are my own, right? I'm not going to go broke trading because somebody screwed me over or because someone didn't like me, or I said the wrong thing. I will go broke trading because I've made mistakes trading, and you can well, that'd be very tough to live with. At least it's yours. You can own
yeah,
that. So that's
yeah.
the good side of it, but the bad side of it, that can be very lonely.
Yes, I'm very
Um,
lonely too in this. Yeah, and it's but a little bit less lonely when we're checking in on each other.
Yeah,
Just
that's what I have found, which was not, when we started CMR, there was no really agenda as to where it would lead, but this is kind of where it has led, and I think it's leading to a good place. The whole thing about the newsletter that I write, for example, every week, I had been writing that for myself for over a decade. Didn't go out to
possibly.
anybody, it went out to me and me alone. And part of that, you talk about mindfulness, was me trying to get things down on paper, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Here's a mistake that I made this week. Here, you know what I mean? And get it on paper so that I could, instead of just squashing it down, get it out so that it's in my consciousness so that I can then help to learn from it, right?
Yes,
I
yes,
found that to be a very helpful experience, which, like I say, I didn't start doing that for any other reason other than for myself. And
yeah,
now I can pass it along, and others can hopefully learn from my mistakes as well.
yeah. And we get to be a part of a culture because it's important. And because I was part of different trading groups, multiple paid ones, and CMR I like very much because the culture. The culture, of the group, it reflects the leaders, I think, or at least in part. And the humility, I think, you can treat the market because you have the experience. I really appreciate, and I think we all can benefit from the humility of your analysis. And it's not only the words, it's not only the okay. It's not about predicting and being absolutely convinced, but executing an edge with determination, and that's what it's all about. I think that's what we learned from you. Risk manage, and yeah, because it's very hard, and maybe it's becoming harder and harder, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Arguably with technology and AI moving at the speed that it's moving at this point, and its supposed ability to be able to outthink humans, you could argue that will make it harder over
But
time.
also the noise, I don't know how you can listen to so much news because I think you somewhere mentioned that and sometimes you listen to it in the background. I just couldn't imagine how I could bear with those noise. But I know you're reading sentiment, and that's very important. But that's
That's
like,
really
oh
all
my
I'm
God.
doing when I do that. I'm not like listening to financial news to hear like, where the CPI is going to come out next week or any of that, because nobody knows any of that. I'm really just listening to try and determine sentiment. It
Yeah.
perks up sometimes where, I'll be watching the financial news network or whatever, and you'll have like 10 people in a row came on and come to the same exact conclusion. And that's when I really start to perk up and be like, okay, we're getting some good consensus here. Dating consensus is my main thing. So I have to try and figure out how to establish what is consensus, which oftentimes there is no mass consensus. But when there is, that's when things tend to get very interesting.
Yes, yes, and I'm really looking forward to trying these concepts out for myself. I've already started to backtest some COT. I also indexed and did some things. I'm going through all of it. I really have to digest all the process to have the confidence to execute on it. Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds great. Trial and error, see where you go. It's all about learning. You know what I mean? You might find
yeah,
something that works for you. You might not, but not everything works for everybody. But
yeah.
trying things is clearly the first step.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, trend following, I think works better for stocks and crypto. or things that are not like commodities. Maybe earlier, I think it worked better for high time frames, commodities, trend following. I don't know if you have experience with someone who does well in trend following, like higher time frame commodities, but I just couldn't really. There are more market turns that you like to specialize on. I think I just watched so many charts. It's hard to pick those rare trends, I think, in commodities. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah.
it's all pretty hard.
But
I
yeah,
think for everything there's a season. There's a
yeah.
season for trend following that
Yes.
works sometimes, and there's a season when trend following doesn't work. And hopefully, you have other things in your portfolio that will work during that time. I mean, that's really what building wealth over time is, having non-correlated return streams in your portfolio. But that's for another day and another conversation. All right, can you leave us with anything else? Any other piece of knowledge of how we can get our
Oh
minds?
well, I would just finish with if you FOMO into something, just FOMO into a community like the CMR, because it's that's what's worth it, I think.
Awesome. We appreciate that, James, and we appreciate the stuff that you do. You've shared a lot of great stuff on the community.
Thank you.
You've
Yeah.
been very open.
Thanks.
I've seen very open about, some of your back testing and some of your trend following back testing and a lot of your crypto knowledge, which, I'm not a big crypto trader. So we do have some on there of which you are one. So it really helps for people that are looking for that. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you coming on today. And it was great talking to you. And I hope everything's going well in Budapest.
Thank you. Thank you. I wish you good luck and less suffering, more happiness in trading. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.